Daniel, hi. Thank you for agreeing to this interview, first of all, and congratulations for being more than halfway through your term, and also for being the first international president that the Warwick Student Union has ever had. So in terms of analysing or assessing your success so far, it seems to make sense to look at some of the manifesto promises you made, and a number of them spring to mind that so far haven't really been followed through on, such as bringing back Battered, providing 100 free printer credits for students, creating a living space in the atrium, free parking for carpooling students, the U1 campaign. So do you think that some of the lack of following through has been a result of naivety or over-ambition, or is it more lack of commitment from you and your team?
I mean, a lot of these things we wanted to do, but because of the changes, because of the dramatic changes, it just got sidelined. We didn't know this would happen, and no one expected the cuts to be as deep as they did. People thought, oh, fees might increase to, 4,000, 5,000 pounds. No one expects an 80% cut in the teaching grant. And this was the worst case scenario, worse than any of us could have possibly imagined.
I remember that one major aspect of your campaign was about cutting costs. I think one of your slogans was "We're students, not customers." So, I also remember you drew specific reference to the cost of routes accommodation having risen from £1,650 in 2002 to £3,159 in 2,009. But since that time, again, it's risen, I think, by 2.5% to 3,000, above to £3,200. So, does that sort of thing represent maybe the limitations of student politics?
For me, honestly, with accommodation, it was me being naive, if I'm honest. Accommodation here on campus is actually subsidized by the conference trade. It's a pretty good deal. They break even. They don't make a profit at all. And the rise this year was only to cover inflation. So it was me being naive. Certain aspects of it was. Other aspects I'm still pushing on.
I suppose the other main aspect of your campaign was the focus on international students, because as I started off by saying, you are the first international president we've ever had. So I remember one of your proposals was to incorporate the orientation week, to shorten it and maybe try to incorporate it within Freshers Week. First of all, why did this not happen? Secondly, do you think that it was a wise idea, and do you think it might have forced kind of cultural homogeneity? And thirdly, are you aware that it was actually proposed in 2008 by Thomas Pidgeon, who's a former student union?
I know that Tom pushed it quite hard, and actually we're in talks with the university right now about the induction process, and so it's potentially likely that this might go through.
Okay, right.
The discussions have progressed. The problem with orientation is that it's all international students, and it's for an entire week. I just think it should be shortened. Certain aspects of orientation should be kept. You need people to open a bank account, you need to get a new phone. There's certain necessities that British students just don't have. But I think it's possible to combine both into a single week. Okay. So it's just a new model. And
do you think that there's perhaps, I saw on your blog, for example, you were talking about your struggle, about the immigration policies and trying to simplify the process of obtaining visas and payments throughout the system. Do you think that there's a risk of maybe focusing on too small a group, which, for international students I think represent 21.1%, and sidelining local students?
The thing with immigration changes, and the reason that I've been complaining so much about it this year, is the fact that there's very poor representation of international students nationally. If you look at student unions across the country, I'm pretty much the only international president, only one that really knows about this issue. So the reason I'm doing it is because no one else is. I had a debate with Damien Green on national radio, and I pushed him I pushed him on his proposals and said they were wrong, and I'll continue to do so.
Right.
And because it's huge, these are huge changes, and they have a huge economic impact on home students as well. Because as you know, international students contribute to universities, and that helps with the quality of courses, that helps subsidize British students essentially. So it does affect local students, just most people don't understand it.
Okay. Lastly, before we wrap up, you mentioned during your campaign that you thought that the winner should be the one which had the best policies, rather than, it should be some kind of trumped-up popularity contest. Yet you performed this kind of stunt that you've been very well known for, which is this 72 hours staying awake thing. Do you think that doesn't sound maybe a little hypocritical? Surely it represents commitment, but by the same token, wouldn't it also be committed to get a good night's sleep and answer questions with a fresh mind, rather than being available for people to ask questions at 4:30 in the morning?
I think so. I think it could be a bit hypocritical, but I did it because I wasn't really well known, and that was what's getting at. You shouldn't vote on someone because they're popular. You should vote on them because of their actual policies or when you talk to them. And that's what I wanted to do with the 72 Hours, was just to be able to talk to as many people as possible in a short time frame.
Okay.
And not have people vote for me because they knew me before.
All right. So, as a last question, then, what have you taken from the process so far? What do you see as your main goals for the next, for the remainder of your term? And what advice would you give to your successor?
3 main goals: transport, immigration, internationalization. Those are the 3 main goals for the rest of this year. Actually, no, there's a 4th goal, and that's dealing with all the changes in terms of student experience, student support versus essentially university is going to make huge changes in the next 2 months, and we have to be on top of that. So essentially, not going to sleep for a few months. Advice I have to my successor, the person that wins: have a good heart and do it because you care for students.